See that window? Two of them. Oh, they can't see that.
That's on their end, yeah.
Oh.
So, Steve, are we good to go? Okay.
Steve, I think that message is yours that's broadcasting about the recording. Yep.
Okay, I'd like to call the Town of Essex Select Board meeting for Monday, May 15, 2023 to order. First order of business, are there any agenda additions or changes from the town staff?
Just one from staff. Tim Mack was not available to come tonight to interview for the Economic Development Commission, so we will reschedule him. Ray Garofano may also need to reschedule, so depending on whether or not she shows up, we can either keep her on the agenda, maybe adjust the agenda, or we'll schedule her for a future meeting.
Okay. Any changes from board members? Okay, then I will make the motion that we amend the agenda to remove Tim Mack from the interview list and possibly interview Ray Garofano when she's available. So a second. Okay. Thank you, Ethan. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. The motion passes 4-0. Move on to public to be heard. Public to be heard is a time on the agenda when those attending the meeting can speak to the select board on any item of town business that's not on the agenda. If you'd like to speak during public to be heard, you either raise your hand in the room or use the raise hand feature in the Zoom application. You can find the button by moving your cursor to the bottom of your screen. Then the reactions button, click on the reactions button, will offer you the opportunity to raise your hand. Is there anyone who would like to speak during public to be heard? Betsy behind you. There's somebody behind you. So come on. Oh, she was. I thought I saw your hand first. So Betsy, come on up then. Identify yourself and state your business.
Betsy Dunn, live on Cindy Lane in Essex, and I've got a couple questions. My first one is I was shocked. I wanted to send a note to the chair of the Planning Commission, and I went onto the website because on my Conservation Trails Commission committee, we have our names with our emails, and I was surprised when I didn't have the emails there for the members of the Planning Commission, and I'm wondering what was the reason for not having the access to those to the public. And also, I would like to suggest that when a committee or commission has a draft set of minutes ahead of them and they approve them, I would like to see those get posted on the Front Porch Forum with a link to the, at the bottom of them, a link to the YouTube, so that if they read these and they're like, I'm kind of interested in that, and they want to go see what it's about, it might spark more public interest in what's going on with the committees and commissions we have in town. I don't think it would be anything harmful or anything like that. That's that one. And then it's come to my attention from a Facebook page about the Birchwood Manor group that they're going to put speed bumps in and to slow the traffic down. And without a doubt, people are speeding all the time. Until today, a neighbor and I were standing on the side of the road, and these 3 individuals came flying by in their car, and I said, slow down. And they went by and they came back, and it almost looked like they were coming towards me a bit, and then they kind of veered off. It wasn't like a game of chicken. I didn't feel threatened. But that as they went by, they went F you to me. And I was like, well, okay, yeah, all right, I understand speed bumps. But I'm wondering, instead of speed bumps, could we do, so many people are upset about, have like a black box that has a camera in it and a speed indicator, with a little gun, a speed gun kind of thing, so that when a car went by, it would activate it and you'd get the license plate and the speed they were doing. And then you could give them a ticket. And then we could have a little more money for the coffers. That's the second thing. And then I think that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, I want to make sure I hit all your points.
Email.
It's my understanding that putting personal or contact information in on the website is a personal choice. I don't know. For the planning commission, there is a email address that you can send to, and I'm not sure who it goes to. But
Yeah, so most of our almost all of them, our volunteers and our boards and committees have their personal email addresses. We don't have town issued email
Right.
addresses for them. So what we do is we ask people and direct people to email the appropriate staff person for that board and committee.
And so how will people know what the staff person's name is?
Thought that most of our boards and committees had that listed, but I will check, and if it's not there, we'll work on getting it.
Oh, thanks.
but
Okay.
there is an email address in there that's communitydevelopment@essex.org or something like that, because I sent an email to it
Okay.
last week, and I
Okay.
did get a response. So, but I'm not sure. It goes to a distribution list. I'm not sure who's on.
But so it's a choice of ours not to have our email those up there. I thought it wasn't a choice. That's okay. I was just- yeah.
Since you don't have a town issued email address, yeah, it's your choice whether or not you want to have that out in the public or not.
Okay.
So that's one question. Your next question was about having links to minutes.
Mhm.
I don't know if there's.
I can look into it. We do have a limited number of posts to Front Porch Forum, and so we try to use them for certain things. A lot of times it's more to tell people when a meeting is coming up versus letting them know when it's done. But we can take a look and see if it's something we can do, or
Okay.
maybe we can do something like here's the upcoming meeting. If you want to hear about the last meeting, check the website for the links or for the minutes, something like
Okay.
that.
And to answer your third question, the state of Vermont does not accept photographic evidence for speeding violations. So it has to be witnessed by an officer.
Oh.
yeah.
They can come stand at my house. I'll let them
So-
stand there. They don't have to have a car because as soon as
Yeah.
people see a
So-
car, they slow down.
So there is a small secret though that when those boxes are out there, they do take a picture of your license plate, and so the police do know who you are if you go past one of those at a high rate of speed, but they cannot write you a ticket based on that evidence.
But if they know that they're on our block or one of the blocks in Birchwood,
They have to
they could
explicitly
stand there and
physically
wait.
they have to physically observe the incident. It's like
Okay.
it's like if I walk down the street with a beer in my hand and the cop doesn't see me, it's not an open container violation. But as soon as they see you and they decide to charge you, then it is. So it's a similar thing.
Can you have volunteer police people?
So you want to?
There is a I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but I had dealt with this a couple years before I joined the board. There's a traffic enforcement officer, the Essex Police Department,
Uh-huh.
and I think his name is listed for the contact information listed on the police department website, and he is very helpful. If you give him a call and let him know where you live, what's going on,
Okay.
good resource that we have. So
Thanks,
put
Ethan.
that out there.
Thank you. What was the other one? The speed bumps.
I'm not sure what your question was about the speed bumps.
I'm not in favor of speed bumps at all. And somehow, I mean, this was just reported to me that a group of people, would you go, kind of thing.
Mhm.
And but they said that there was a vote. I was at the meeting we had when Dennis Lutz was there. I think Aaron, were you there when we had that meeting? Oh, Ann, you were okay. And we didn't really have a vote, about it. And it sounded like they were being told that there was a vote and it was approved. And
Oh.
I don't think it was.
My understanding, a couple of years ago, it was 2 years ago, the town was looking at an erosion issue in the back portion of your neighborhood, was trying
At
to
Fernwood Hall.
trying to reduce the amount of impermeable surface, but the question came up about, well, why is the road so wide? And it's because we were told that it was because there's no second access. And so in order to try to guarantee a better access to the neighborhood, because you only get one access to it in an emergency, the road, we were, folks in your neighborhood requested that the road stay that way, or there's some reason that it needs to stay that way.
Well,
Because the options that were offered were to narrow the road for speeding. So that when we had the discussions about narrowing the road to reduce impermeable surface, the discussion about speeding came up, And so the discussions were then, well, if you, the two things you do to slow down speeders is you narrow the road, put things in their way so that people aren't as comfortable going as fast, or you either go horizontally or you go vertically. And because the road needs to be 40 feet wide for safety reasons, the only other option to slow traffic down is to put in a speed bump.
Well, I really don't buy this. It was from the beginning of the Tanglewood or the Birchwood whole thing, because that
There was discussions about putting in a,
Way,
a
because
bike
right-
path with a green area to narrow
Oh.
the road down to
Yeah.
to put in a but all that kind of went away when it was realized that for safety reasons you want that the road needs to be that wide in order to allow.
but
'Cause it's unlikely that a single tree falling is going to block in a 40-foot road, right? I guess.
there's 80-foot trees there. And those 80-foot trees, after Glenwood, the second access on Glenwood, when you're coming up the street, there's no access for the people who are coming in for a person who's having an MI at the end of Tanglewood to get out and start sawing that tree so they can get their ambulance past it. That person's a goner. And we have 160 units back there now on that street going back, and the regulation says 50. Any more than 50, you're supposed to have a second access. So whether or not that tree can fall down,
Yeah.
we are sadly out of tune to what that regulation is. And it could mean people's lives. And I think that that's a problem. And I think somehow we need to have a group of people get together to figure out how do we mitigate that. Because if it was your life or your sweetheart's life or your uncle's life or your grandfather's life who's back there, with a lot of old people back there, a lot of young people too who can have an emergency, and we need to fix this in some way. There's no one who automatically is going to have a saw that they can get through that to get the ambulance back there. That's a non-starter for me. That's crazy. I was a SICU nurse, a critical intensive care unit nurse originally, and those people die quickly. And if they're calling and there's any interval to get there, I mean, we need to do something. This town needs to do something. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments.
Thank you.
There was another hand. Come on up. Identify yourself and
My name is Steve Jabarek. I live at 75 Lost Nation Road. And the reason I am here, I like to voice my disappointment that we weren't informed about the condition of the dam, the Indian River Dam. I don't know whether you're aware of it or not, but it is it's a high hazard dam, and it's in poor condition. You know, it would be nice for the people that are affected, because there's about 9 houses involved, if we would know about it.
so I'm not sure what you're asking.
Probably,
You're asking us to.
well, why didn't the town inform us that, we have a dam up there that's a high hazard, in poor condition?
I'm not sure if this will answer your question, but to give you some information, when the dam is ranked as high hazard, it's not because the dam is about to fail.
Right,
It's because if the dam were to fail, it would create a hazard downstream, which it sounds like is
Right.
where you are. We have a grant. We're working with FEMA and the state to do an analysis of the dam to figure out exactly what type of condition it's in, what type of repairs are going to be needed, improvements, maintenance, stuff like that.
Well,
We are
accord-
working towards that, and so we are aware of it. It's not about to break. It's not about to send a flood downstream. But that the reason it's called a high hazard dam is because of what could happen if it were to break.
Yeah, I know, sir, but it's been, I got it from the state, and it's in poor condition. Right? You guys must have the information on it.
We're we're doing a study to figure out exactly what condition it's in. We're working with the state, and we're going to start to look at what the upgrades and maintenance and any improvements might need to be.
Oh, can I jump in too, just in case it's helpful? Every year, the state does actually come back to us with an assessment. And so every year, if there is something that needs to be looked at right away, we do any of that. And I don't know if Aaron is sitting there or not, but it's from the rec department and public works. And so they are made aware every year of these changes. If for some reason there is, something that has to be fixed right away, then those repairs are put into place. But it is something that the state also pays attention to closely with us because, like you said, it would affect people, and therefore they also have it on their radar because of their own part that they play in taking care of these dams throughout the state as well. So it is, it's not something that we're just waiting and not paying any attention to until that FEMA study is done. It does, it comes through, they look at it routinely. This FEMA study is actually just a fast-tracked, more intense kind of way to look at a few of these high hazards, as you said, to help get more money, more focus on them, to help get that condition up from poor to higher. Because right now, it's just like, we try to just chip at whatever is absolutely necessary to make sure it's safe and maintain that. I don't know if that's helpful, but.
But shouldn't the people that are affected being informed that something could happen? I'm not too concerned with my property, but 722 Lost Nation Road and 66 Lost Nation Road, they would be really the one that would be flooded out completely.
I think we can certainly look at identifying the homes that are in the hazard area, letting them know that the study's coming up and making them aware of it. I think we could do that.
Yeah, I got from the engineer. I got the map. I got all the information. I'm just wondering, why aren't we informed about this? Why do we have to find out from the free press that there's a problem up there? No answer.
I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. I mean,
I think it's something for us to look at going forward, but again, it's not, I think part of the reason we hadn't done it to this point is that it's not as if the dam is about to break. It's not an imminent evacuation type of situation, but we'll take it to heart.
You guarantee that, sir? Yes. You guarantee it?
From everything I have heard, the dam is not about to break.
Yeah. You know that the low-level overflow has been operational now for 10 years or more. You are familiar with that?
I know the dam is not in perfect shape, but I also know it's not about to break.
Okay. Thank you.
all right. Thank
Have
you.
a nice evening.
Yep. Thanks. Anyone else who'd like to speak during public to be heard? I don't see any hands in the room. And I don't see any online, so let's move on to our first item of business interview for Economic Development Commission. Do them in order that they appear on the list. Oh, reset. Public hearing. Sorry, thank you. Thank you. Whoops. Come on up, Aaron.
No, I think they're the.
Didn't hear about that agenda change? No, I'm kidding.
Okay. The FY 2024 operating budget, proposed 24 water budget has an overall increase of 12.5%, resulting in 74% increase in water use. I'm so sorry to interrupt. So I can't touch.
We're usually told not to touch it.
Okay. There is no increase in proposed in minimum water charge, and it will remain $190 per year. The proposed sewer budget has an overall increase this year of 14.2% in budgeted line items, resulting in a 6.28% increase in the user rate. Both the water and sewer connection fees will remain unchanged this year. Although there are a few things impacting this year's water and sewer budgets, treatment costs have had the most substantial impacts on both. Nearly a third of the water increase is due to treatment costs from Champlain Water District, and nearly half of this year's increase in sewer is due to increased costs over at the city treatment plant. The proposed water user rate will be $6.18 per 1,000 gallons of usage. The minimum rate will remain 190 this year for all accounts using 100 GPD or less per day. And the sewer rate this year proposed to be $10.91 per 1,000 gallons of usage. To kind of give some insight on what this would do to the average residential user, we estimate an average home uses about 200 GPD of water and sewer per year. Those connected to just water will see an annual increase of $20.44 this year, with a total annual bill projected to be $451.14, which is $37.60 a month. Home connected to both, a combined bill will see an increase of $67.16. And again, that'll probably be around $106 per month. Sewer. We still think for safe drinking water and municipal sewer, is still an exceptional deal in comparison to other regions of the country. You're getting a quality product, safe, and we're able to send waste away as needed. So, want to address any questions, comments for this year's budget?
All right. Thanks, Aaron. Don, go ahead.
I just had one question. Why no increase in the connection?
We didn't feel this year it was needed. Right now, those costs seem to are in line with what is required, not only for staff time, but the actual replacement cost for allocation within the system.
Any other board questions? Okay, any questions from the public, either in the room or online? Betsy. Yeah, come to the microphone.
So, Aaron, when you're doing this, I won't touch it. And you're talking about the stormwater. Is this also the stormwater?
No, ma'am.
No.
Does it come under that? Okay, that's all I did know.
Any other questions or comments from the public? Okay, seeing none, then I'll close the public hearing. And we can move on to what I tried to do before. All set?
Plan?
Hmm?
Oh,
capital plan.
yeah. I didn't know how you wanted
My
to do it.
apologies. Yeah, I think I made the same mistake last year during this. So we didn't. Yeah. We'll continue the public hearing and talk about the capital plan. There we go.
Sure. So the fiscal year 2024 to 2028 capital budget, water and sewer capital plan and budget are separate from the general fund, and is completely supported through user rates, impact fees, and good resource management over the years by both finance department and public works. The town has been able to accumulate a cash reserve, assist in financing capital projects without impacting user rates. There are currently 15 capital projects identified in our 5-year plan, 7 of which are water and 8 are sewer. There's currently $993,412 of designated funds for future capital projects, and an additional $3,692,144 in unrestricted capital funds. For fiscal year 2024, The requested expenditure this year will be $418,000 in capital for water, and an additional $415,000 for sewer project. Staff will continue to prepare scoping and preliminary engineering reports with this funding and leverage future capital funding for final design of some of these projects on the plan and construction. And we're also going to try to get as much of SRF funding as we possibly can. We'll be back to you with more information on that as these projects do progress. Scoping.
All right, thanks,
So
Aaron.
we're at.
All right, any questions from the board on the capital plan? Seeing none, any question? Oh, go ahead.
The
Don.
SRF funding be matching? Is that one of those matching ones?
Will likely be eligible for loans, low interest.
Okay, any questions or comments from the public about the water and sewer capital plan? Missing anything? Betsy?
Does this
It depends where they're located within our transmission system or this. We're going to try, yes.
Yeah, so part of there's a line items in there, there's stabilization funds that are sometimes called depreciation that are intended for replacement of infrastructure, hopefully before it fails, right?
Yep.
Yeah. When it gets to its expected lifetime, then or before.
And another item that we have been in a project we have been doing over the past 2 years, and this will be our final year for at least for our water system, is a leak detection survey to go in there and take a look and address all these small leaks within our system, so they don't become large leaks and make some cheaper costs than as they break.
And to be clear, all of the capital associated with water and sewer is paid for through water and sewer rates. So it's not from the general town capital tax or there's no operating transfers from the general fund. It all comes from the water rates.
So would they have
Well, I would hope that they wouldn't all fail at once. I mean, we don't, but there are a number of things. We do have a substantial amount of reserve funding where we can do that, but that would be the route to take, would be to go after loans to repair anything that we needed to, something catastrophic like. But as part of some of the studies that we've done both in sewer and in water, we're hoping to kind of alleviate that and not go there, and address our issues that we do see and the concerns we do see now on our terms versus wait.
And it's been over a decade since we've had to borrow any money to repair anything, right?
Correct.
So, yeah. We've been intentionally setting money aside to pay for the stuff as it, hopefully before it fails. All right. Any other comments or questions? Okay, now can I close the public hearing? Thanks, Aaron. All right.
Thank you.
I'll try to remember next year to do that one right. Flash. Okay, moving on to interviews for Economic Development Commission. And you're up first. Your name's on the list first. Let's get past Tim Mack. So come on up, introduce yourself. been here before. Share whatever you think.
Been here
select
before,
board
that's
might,
true.
Might be interested to hear about your.
Good evening, all. My name is Ken Signorello. I live on Brigham Hill Road. You may not remember, but this is actually my third time applying for the Economic Development Commission. So you probably heard the standard spiel quite a few times already, so I'll try to trim it down a bit. 19-year resident of the town, operated Results Incorporated in 1981. Since 1981, that's 42 years. Have the darkroom gallery down at the Five Corners. I operated a newspaper called Harbor Watch. I do photography through Green Destiny Images, and I have occasionally written and produced media for the Essex Retorter. I don't know if I've ever mentioned my education per se. I have a bachelor's degree in forest management. I did graduate work at UVM for forest mapping, actually. It was the early days of the geographic information system developments, which we all depend on so much now. I was actually there at the beginning. So why am I applying for the EDC? I've been attending EDC meetings for about 2 years now, and I'd like to try to accomplish 3 things on the Economic Development Commission. Just like at my last interview, I mentioned that there's some technical issues that kind of needed tightening up. Little things like the last meeting, for example, they forgot to post an agenda, so they had to call the meeting. There couldn't be a meeting. The website says they meet twice a month. They meet once a month. There hasn't been an organizational meeting yet this year. So the vice chair, there is only a vice chair. There's no chair. So little things like that, I think, would be handy. The videos of the meeting haven't been posted to YouTube at all. Of all the committees and commissions that have been posting, that one is missing. So that's the first thing. I'd like to try to get just a little bit of tightening and make sure the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. Second thing, I noticed that in the select board's list of priorities that you developed from the last strategic planning meeting, economic development plan was on the list, but it got a low priority, which of course makes totally good sense for the select board. But for the Economic Development Commission, it should be the top priority. Very, very important, I think. I noticed it's not even on the EDC's work plan. I did notice that. I went onto the website and I noticed that this economic development in Essex has been published 3 times, I think it is. It's a document that the EDC produced in 2010, updated it in 2013 and 2018. I think that needs to be updated. It's 5 years now. And we supposedly have this business directory or business database that's been produced. I haven't seen this updated. It's been 5 years. I think I've heard that the inventory had been done maybe a year and a half ago. And I still haven't seen any results from it. So one thing I'd like to do on that commission is try to get some information out of that data. Maybe even figure out some knowledge from that information. Not only just how many businesses do we have, and I noticed this document is very focused on employment. But employment is only one metric. There's a lot more in the economy than just employees. There is the land the businesses take up. There's the sectors. None of this information is in here. I don't know how much business, how much of our economy is retail, how much is industrial, how much is service, how much land are each of these sectors using up, and where is the agricultural sector? Not in here at all. So those are some of the things I'd like to focus on a little bit in terms of an economic development plan. I do think there should be one. I think it should be the top priority for the Economic Development Commission. Third thing, secondary agricultural users or producers. Those are things that you actually had one here just the other day. You approved the liquor license for the Vermont Cider Lab, I think was the name of the business. These are businesses, along with our 2 breweries, that use agricultural products as raw material directly and produce another product, kind of like a sawmill takes lumber and turns it into lumber. I'd like to attract more of those types of businesses here, and I'd like to see the raw materials for those businesses produced here. I'd love to see grain being produced for the breweries here. We already have apples here, possibly more. So I'd like to see that sector of our economy focus on a little bit. That could extend to, and we have lots of forests. We have a lumber mill here now. Lamel Lumber processes softwood only. But our forests are now growing into hardwood. We have second stage forests now. Our pioneer species, the white pines, they're starting to die off and be harvested. The red pines in Saxon Hill, that was a plantation that was planted. Those will be gone, and hardwoods will be the understory. We have no lumber processing for hardwoods at this point in the town, other than firewood, which, as you probably know, biomass is not the greatest use of forest products for heating. So those are three things I'd like to do on the Economic Development Commission. I'd like to see some technical tightening. I'd like to see an economic development plan produced by the Economic Development Commission, particularly leveraging the information that it has gathered, I believe. I haven't seen it yet, but I believe it has been gathered. And finally, try to cultivate some of the things I'm starting to see happen, the secondary agricultural product users. One last thing, I've been on the Conservation and Trails Committee now for a year and a half, I think it is. So there's a track record there you can check out. One thing I want to tell you about the Conservation and Trails Committee is that it gets things done. So I'm on a committee that actually does, in fact, do things. You have seen the Adopt a Tree program, for example. Alan Batula did that. The Town Plan Work Group, I participated in that and was partially responsible. Actually, I kind of was my idea to have all of those meetings all around town to engage the citizens. I actually organized 3 of them myself, particularly at places like Lamell Lumber and the Essex Country Club, places like that. Betsy's here. She did the pollinator gardens. The thing about that committee is people actually take charge of things and do things. They don't necessarily depend on others. They just get it done themselves. I did the spongy moth outreach program to the HOAs. First thing I did when I got there. Shannon organized the cleanup over at Indian Brook this last weekend. What a lovely day. Didn't see any of you there, but it was a lovely day. So I can see what works on a committee. I have that experience now on the Conservation and Trails Committee. You have evidence right behind you. It was my resolution that wanted to see the picture of the whaling ship Essex taken down and replaced with something that represents our town. That resolution I wrote, and I had our committee, they passed it unanimously. It was not a question. So I've also gained that aspect of being on a committee, trying to get something done, got that done. So not only am I eager to serve, I think I have some skills to contribute. I have a demonstrated track record of working on a committee, and I know what makes a committee effective. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Ken. Any questions for Ken?
Okay.
Don, go
So
ahead.
what happens when you're in the minority when making a decision? How do you?
You make your best pitch. You try to convince people that what you're proposing makes sense. Evidence-based, not opinion-based. It works or it doesn't.
Fine.
Anybody else?
Remember my official.
Mm.
Going to ask you, see any conflicts between this potential position and your ones that you currently have?
Well, that'll depend on the leadership of the Economic Development Commission. Right now, it wouldn't change things a bit. I'm going to the Economic Development Commission meetings now. I would still be going to them. And there's no extracurricular activities required of anybody in the Economic Development Commission currently. Hopefully that would change. I'll make this promise. If it turns out that something does change and it's too much, if I decide to resign either position, I would not do that, or I'd make it. I would make it effective my replacement. I would not leave either of the committees high and dry.
Did you think of your question yet?
Yeah, I had it pieced together for a second. I don't remember what I was. Stole my normal question, so. If gosh, I can't remember how to word. I'm blank.
Long day.
Yeah. I know what I want to say. I just can't put the words in my mouth.
I can fill in the blanks.
if you, or I'll just ask a different question because I can't remember what I'm trying to say. If you were in a time of disagreement, how did you convince others to agree with you?
Well, similar question that
Is that
Dawn
what
just
Dawn
asked.
asked? She might have asked that. I'm broken.
All right.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
You have any questions for us?
No. The only other thing I would say is right now the Economic Development Commission has 3 city residents on it. And from my observation, and I would be in the same boat, I think, their hearts just don't seem to be in it. I really think that we need people that want to move the town forward. There's a lot of change that's happened now. We have tremendously changed economic climate with the split. And I think that we need to get in gear.
Okay. So there are 3 seats that are being reviewed, that are being, I guess, that 3 terms that expire at the end of June. What we will since nobody is actually resigning, we don't have an empty seat to fill, so we're waiting till the
And those terms.
the second meeting of June to have discussions about appointments or to make appointments. It's my understanding there's 3, right? And because in order to avoid there being 3 again in 3 years, some of them will be
Staggered.
We're going to shorten some of the terms.
Partial to anyone,
Just
whichever
making
works.
making,
Doesn't matter to me.
making you aware of that.
Totally aware.
And so we may or may not go into executive session later to discuss. But we won't be making appointments this evening, especially since not all the
2 other candidates
candidates
interview, of course, that makes
were able to make it tonight. So thank you for taking the time
Thank
to
you.
talk to us, and thank you for stepping forward.
For considering me.
Okay, Irene Renner. Come on up.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to apply to the Economic Development Commission open seats. As you know, I've spent a lot of hours in this building, and if appointed, I would spend a few more. My energy and passion for Essex would make me an asset on the Economic Development Commission. Not to mention, I know a lot of people in this town and now throughout the state, and I'm eager to reach out to meet more of them, especially those who do business here or would like to. In fact, I'm known for reaching out to people, asking informed questions, and listening hard. I've lived here for 25 years. I've been involved in local government in some capacity for almost 18. It's hard to follow Ken, but I too have 3 goals. And I base them kind of on what was and wasn't in a report that was prepared in 2010. The Economic Development Vision and Plan for Essex, Vermont. We had hired consultants. We had paid $50,000, a lot of money back then. And some of the things that were highlighted in here are still relevant. Some of them are not. Back then people still wanted us to finish the Sark Highway. They wanted us to find a replacement for IBM because there was a big fear that IBM might leave. Saxon Hill and the town center needed development. Right now, they have been quite well developed. Affordable housing was already an issue then. Climate crises, the climate change was mentioned. And yet there are some new hurdles I think that we need to address. And I think that this is a good document still, maybe as a jumping off point for folks to read through it and jog our memories as to how far we've come and what we still have to do. Then, of course, there's legislation like S100 that's just come out of Montpelier that we will need to address as it changes to some degree the Act 250 constraints for building and development here. As to what else is new, we're going to have a somewhat renovated 40th and Allen Tower. And so I was reminded that that is one area of Essex that we don't want to forget when we're talking about economic development. At one point, Citizen Cider was there, but they left. And it could be a very different place right now if they had stayed. So what can we do to address the new town center, 40th and Allen, Saxon Hill, maybe other areas of Essex? And perhaps it would be thinking about how the Conservation Commission kind of divides and conquers. Maybe if each person of those 5 people on the commission took an area and became an expert in it and really focused. I love the opportunity to go over to Saxon Hill and knock on all those doors and meet all the people running those businesses and, just make that initial recent outreach from the town. We've certainly toured a number of those factories and manufacturing plants already as members and friends of the EDC. But to just have more of a one-on-one sort of contact with them and just have them feel that they could pick up the phone and talk to the town manager at the drop of a hat, and it wouldn't have to be such a formal process. Maybe just more of a relationship building that goes on there. So that outreach to different areas is important to me, and having a specialty on the EDC for each member, I think, would be really one way to immerse ourselves more in the business environment of Essex, because I feel like the EDC for the last 4 years that I've been watching them closely has had more of a hands-off and sort of big picture view, and that hasn't led to a lot of real boots on the ground action. And I tend to be about that. Another thing I thought about that's recently changed is we are now a smaller, more nimble town. And so what does that mean for Essex? What is our new brand? Vermont has a brand. What's the brand of Essex? And once we do enough outreach and community conversation about that, maybe we can come up with our own story. And out of that can flow things like a new logo, just a new way of engaging with the public. I happen to have spent quite a lot of time in Milton recently, as you may have guessed, and they have an Economic Development Commission meeting that has anywhere between 20 and 25 people every month. All kinds of stakeholders, the school superintendent, the local business owners, and there's real synergy when you have those folks in the room and you start to talk about current events and what's going on and possibilities. Milton also happens to have a big push on right now, a multi-year push called Milton on the Move. And they got some help writing up a plan. And once again, they've divided and conquered. They have 3 task forces, one which is looking at developing a downtown core, one that's looking at a recreation and fitness center, one that's looking at how they support the small businesses that are starting up everywhere. So again, if we could do more of that, sort of boots on the ground, picking a project, we might see a more effective EDC in the future. And the third big change for me that I've noticed is now that I spend more time in Montpelier, I can talk a lot more often with people in other rural communities and see what they're doing to promote agriculture and sustain their working landscapes. And now that Essex is more rural than ever, as of last July 1st, I think it's important that we celebrate what makes us unique as the new Essex. There was chatter on Facebook about how much fun it is to drive down Towers Road recently and see the cattle grazing. How do you put a price on that? That next to the suburbs, you can still see some of what makes Vermont unique and Vermont special. How do we preserve that? Because when I check the zoning map, that's not even zoned as agricultural. It's low-level residential. So is there a way to re-examine the zoning that we have to make sure that those working landscapes stay interspersed with the housing developments? South Burlington recently asked itself as a community if they had enough land to feed themselves, and they came up just a little short. Can Essex do that? Can we find a way to preserve the Matthews Farm at the end of Chapin Road, or is that going to turn into something that we don't recognize? Serving on the Senate Agriculture Committee, I learned about all kinds of opportunities that we have besides dairy in Vermont to use the land and really promote products that come from here that can really command a high price on the marketplace. Grapes are one of them, but you need a lot of time. You need 3 to 5 years for vineyards to be productive. But we have some very ancient soils here, and it's an incredibly big potential to grow grapes in Vermont. And you don't need to be just along the lakeside. It can be anywhere in Vermont. The nursery growers, namely Sarah Salatino from Full Circle Gardens in Essex, came to testify along with other folks in the landscaping products business. So many of our plants have to come from Michigan or beyond. It's really incredible. In this day and age, when we're trying to cut down on transportation, we don't have enough people growing nursery stock here. And that's a great opportunity because we still, at the moment, have plenty of land to do these kinds of things. So how do we engage folks who are interested in doing agribusiness and show them Essex is a great place to do this, and then support them by what's going on here at 81 Main. I could go on and on, but I won't. We'd love to entertain your questions. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Irene. Questions?
And I won't say.
Oh,
this
you can
time.
use that one. I thought of a different one. Wait about 20 minutes.
I mean, how do you handle the situation when you already? In other words, if you want something and the rest of the board doesn't.
Well, depends on what the ground rules are, and I'm always very good about checking the ground rules. I know that when the select board makes a decision, that one must say, the select board has decided X. I, however, feel this way. If you're interested in understanding how I got to my decision, I would be glad to tell you, but that's with my select board hat on.
So what I'm saying is, so if you presented your plan of breaking up economic development committee into little groups and letting them, visit,
Right.
be responsible for the various areas, and they didn't go along with that,
Yep.
how would you handle it?
I would remind myself how busy I am, and maybe that's a gift. And not have to go out and discover everybody in Saxon Hill and figure out what their issues are and solve them all single-handedly. I'm an optimist at heart.
I'm curious if there's something recently that you've been a part of or accomplished that you're proud of.
I'm really proud that I knocked on doors for 6 months and landed a seat in the Vermont Senate after all the years in local government. And I always said, I have no desire to go Montpelier. But when they redrew that district and gave this part of Chittenden County that I live in a voice of our own, where many of us felt that the 6-pack of senators in the Burlington area really were not as close to us, just given the number of constituents that they had. When you've got over 120,000 constituents, it's really hard to get to know people. And I just thought this was a very valuable opportunity for any single senator to get to know a district. And I just feel very privileged to be that voice for those people. And I have brought a different voice to the State House this session. So thanks.
Do you foresee any conflicts with your current responsibilities with your other commissions and positions?
I don't. I've been dialing into meetings remotely during the session, and I would do that again next year when the session's on. I would plan to be here in person otherwise, because I really think being in person at a meeting is the most effective way to be.
All right. Do you have any questions for us?
I might. Let's see. I guess just playing off what Ken had said about having non-resident members of the EDC. I think that's a really interesting thing to consider and maybe reconsider.
Yeah,
there's only 5 people.
That question has come up among the board. We haven't had a complete discussion about what we want to do about that. So
I guess I would have another question, which would be, how do you feel about having the EDC meet off-site? Because I know it's been very effective in Milton to go to different places besides the town hall for EDC meetings, because it's a nice way to not just meet and talk about the issues, but actually explore the businesses. And in fact, at the end of this month, we're going to Vermont Sports Car in Milton, and we're going to see what they do there to detail cars and fix cars or whatever Vermont Sports Car does. But apparently they are unique in Vermont in doing this. I've been to a nutritional pet manufacturers, like nutritional snacks for pets manufacturer. I've been to the winery up on Duffy Road in Milton. So there's a lot of unique businesses there. There's like a number of unique businesses here that I'm not sure we've sussed out. And it would be really fun, I think, with permission of the staff here, to perhaps take the meeting on the road at some points.
yeah, the select board's not imposing any restrictions on you around any of the
If you
commissions
do, I'd
around
be
that.
disappointed, but I would go. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. All right. You heard what I said before about we're waiting till we get all our interviews done, and we're not replacing empty seats. We're reconsidering seats that are expiring.
Super.
So nobody's resigned. And we'll get back to you later in June, or toward the end of June.
Thanks so much.
So thanks for.
Great to see you all. Good to be back.
Yep. All right. So let's move on to. Let's see. Is Ray Garofalo here? She's not in the room. I don't see her online. we will circle back if she shows up. Okay, move on to Zoning Board of Adjustment. It says Robert here, but Mike, come on up. Or have you changed preference? Okay. Introduce yourself and.
I have to apply online. They ask for formal
Uh,
names. Usually, when I'm called Robert, I'm usually in deep trouble.
yeah.
I prefer Mike. Thank you for this opportunity. It's been my privilege to serve the Essex, and I'm just going to call it Essex. All of my service for the last 25 years plus has been for town. If you really want to get technical about it, it started with the Planning Commission. I was on both committees that cited the new police department building. I've been on this board a couple of different times, 2 terms on the select board. So it's been my privilege to serve this community. And Catherine and I moved here in 1985, and we have thoroughly enjoyed the stay. Our daughter has flourished here. She has flourished in the school systems here, and we just Essex is home. So I'd like to do another term on the ZBA if you'll have me. I'm a village resident, but I've been serving on this board for a while now, and would like to continue if you decide to have me. I'm not ready to give up my public service yet. So.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Any questions from board members? Who wants to start?
I have a,
Ethan, go ahead.
I'm sure you're familiar with the charter change that got passed and it didn't get taken up, so it didn't happen immediately. But are you familiar with the zoning board of administration of adjustment being turned into a development review board, and would you be willing to go through that transition?
I am willing to make that transition. I have read it with interest. I knew that the select board was moving in that direction, and that the charter change had gone through. And like I said, I'm kind of looking forward to the change. Like I said, if you'll decide to have me back.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I can't ask my question. He answered it the last time we interviewed him. So
Right.
Exactly.
So, Mike, do you have any questions for us?
A couple of previous applicants, Mr. Signorello and Ms. Renner, have mentioned village residents serving on town boards. I guess I look at it a little bit differently, or I wouldn't be sitting here. I enjoy serving Essex, and again, to me, Essex is home. Whether it's city, whether it's village or city, or whether it's town, it doesn't matter. I enjoy serving Essex, so I don't know if my application is a 1-year application, or whether terms are going to be staggered, or what the story is, but I guess I would say whatever you decide for my application, I will accept and look forward to serving.
Right. So we did appoint you for just 1 year the last time, right? And
Right.
So, right. And what's and as Ethan alluded to, yeah, the ZBA goes away.
Yep.
Possibly next year.
Possibly January 1st, 25. Yeah. assuming that the charter change goes through the whole process.
Right.
Next winter. With regard to, we, as I said, we haven't had the discussion yet about whether to have only town residents be on our boards and committees. We've already made at least one exception where our GMT, our Green Mountain Transit, got the right one?
Mhm.
Right. Is our Green Mountain Transit rep is a city resident,
Mhm.
someone who's been doing it for a long time, expressed interest in continuing to do so. So, but again, I can't, we haven't had that discussion, so I can't say we've taken a position.
It's hard to break old habits.
Yep. So, all right. Thanks, Mike. Again, nobody has resigned from this. Actually, there's an empty seat, isn't there?
There is.
Yeah.
There is an empty seat. Yeah. So, but you're asking to be reappointed. So, yeah. In any case, we're not doing reappointments until the second meeting in June. So we'll be
Right.
getting back to you then.
Okay.
So, all right. Thanks.
Thank you again for for this opportunity. I
Yep.
appreciate it very much.
All right. So next we have Yubi. Come on up. Introduce yourself. Tell us what we need to know about you.
Well, when I usually introduce myself, I say, for those who know me and for those whom are trying to forget, my name is Shuby Norton, and I'm an Essex resident. I live in 9 Maple Lawn Drive in Essex Center. Lived in the town for 53 years now. I've been on the zoning board for a while, and would like to be reappointed. A little bit of my background. I worked for just short of 35 years for the telephone company. I started work with New England Telephone Company, and then it became Nynax, and et cetera, Anyway, same company, same desk, doing basically network planning for this Chittenden County area. So in that capacity, I oftentimes met with town officials and or developers trying to get a handle on how things are going to grow, how we needed to expand network, and so on. So I'm familiar with town officials and the basic municipal processes. The last several years, I've worked for a consulting firm where we contract back to the state of Vermont to do highway construction inspection work. And that's basically summer employment. And I've been working at that for about 15 years now. Probably last year was my last year doing that. My wife says we need to take more time off. So, but I'm involved in the community. I do some history research work. I've written a few papers on various aspects of Essex history. As a matter of fact, just today was corresponding with someone about Essex history. I'm also on the board of directors of the 251 Club. I don't know if you. I'll give you a pitch. 251. Anyway, I'm not sure if you know what the 251 Club is, but it's a club that encourages Vermonters, or encourages anyone to visit all of the towns in Vermont. Which, by the way, towns and cities, by the way, which is not 251. That's 252 because of Essex, the city of Essex. But at any rate, so. Yeah, I've served on the board for quite a while. I really believe in the process, that it being a quasi-judicial board, you follow the rules. And there's not a lot of room to create new processes or whatever. You're following the rules and acting on the rules as a quasi-judicial board. And we have to be careful about giving our opinions and not try to design things, but rule on applications as they're presented. And I'd like to continue on the zoning board. I think my experience is valuable, particularly, well, we've had a vacancy on the board for quite a while. Doesn't seem like there are a lot of people rushing to want to be on the board. And so I wouldn't want to leave it high and dry. I'd like to continue. I think there are a lot of misconceptions about the zoning board. I get asked all the time, well, why'd you create that? We do not create zoning rules and regulations, and that's, we're ruling on them. And I think that's important for people to understand. Yeah, that's my my pitch, I guess, and would ask for any questions. And I understand that because the legislature has failed to move on the charter, that things may change timeline-wise. Who knows? As far as if the charter does get approved, well, it would be next year now. What happens regarding zoning board, DBA, and so on, but that's down the road. So,
All right. Thanks, Hubie. Any questions?
And what happens when you want to follow the rules and other people don't on your committee?
well, I think it's important to bring people back in line and say, excuse me, we can't, and we get into this once in a while, where that you have to resist the temptation to design something. Somebody comes in with an application, and this is the application, and you're ruling on it, A or nay, basically. And you're not saying, well, if you did it this way, maybe we would approve. Well, that's not our role. Our role is to rule on what is presented before us and so on. So, there's sometimes tendencies to want to, slide away from the rule a little bit. And so you have to keep reminding folks that, this is what the statute says. These are the criteria for granting a variance, and, you can't wish that one away. So.
All right. Ethan, yeah.
I'm gonna expand a little more on what you mentioned about the charter change. When I should say if and when it takes effect, are you willing to reapply for one of the other boards and continue to give us your knowledge?
Yes, I would look forward to being on a DRB. From my experience working for the phone company and working with development plans, and then particularly with highway construction inspection work, I can read plans. I can visualize plans. I can look at a plan and say, I know what this is going to look like, and so on. I know the nomenclature, and I don't have to rely on somebody. Well, what does that symbol mean? What does this symbol mean? And what's this going to look like? So, I think my experience there would be valuable, from the DRB perspective, and it's been valuable from the zoning board too, because we end up reviewing plans and so on as well. So,
Thank you.
Kendall, got anything? You're good. You any questions for us?
no,
Okay.
happy camper.
All right. Thanks, UV. You've heard the spiel about, we'll go back to you after our second meeting in June. And if you have any buddies that want to apply for that empty seat,
I
send them our way.
Well, I think about some of my neighbors, but then I said, well, geez, I don't know. That might be a conflict there, they think we're teaming up or something, but no, I know it's difficult to get people to apply and so on. I think there's a misunderstanding about what's involved. I think it's some really difficult, burdensome thing, and it's really not. It's you have to follow the rules and have a conscience and so on. But most people can do that.
All right. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's move on to business item 6C, consider approval of fiscal year 2024 water and sewer rates. So we had this public hearing earlier. We've discussed this previous meetings, or at least one meeting, maybe two. Any other questions from board members? Anything you want to say? Okay. Don?
So at this time, then I'd like to make the motion that we approve the FY24 water sewer budget plan and capital layout for FY24 to 20.
Second.
All right. Thank you, Don. Thank you, Ethan. Is that adequate? Do we need to actually read the rates?
Aaron, do you remember what we've done in the past? Have we read?
We read the rates last year, but the memo doesn't have
Doesn't have it in it.
it doesn't have them split apart either. It has them in one recommendation.
Okay. To reflect the FY24
let's-
increase for water for 4.74, water and sewer to 6.28% effective. That we wanted?
Have a recommendation here, page 11.
We need like ours is like page 86.
My page, I was gonna say, I don't have an 11 here, Aaron, I'm sorry.
88 maybe.
It's on page 14 of the PDF.
14.
So if we ignore that first part there, or it's a following timeline, it just discusses, gave it to you.
Right.
So,
Yes.
following the public.
I got it done. I got it here.
As submitted,
Go ahead.
resulting in the following to the rate.
Ethan has it on his, go ahead.
You want me to read the whole thing the way it's written under recommendation?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
One,
please.
Yep.
2,
3,
3.
1, 2. Okay. So at this time, make the motion that the select board accept the water rates and fees. A, increase the water rate from $5.90 per 1,000 gallons to $6.18 per 1,000 gallons. B, the water initiation fee at 1,000 base fee per connection plus $5.90 gallon per day of capacity to remain the same. C, set the water minimum charge per year at $190. D, I'm sorry, I'm terrible with English. Interim or final billing request at $35. 2, sewer rates and fees. A, increase the sewer operating fee from $10.27 per 1,000 gallons to $10.91 per 1,000 gallons. B, the sewer initiation fee of $1,000 base fee per connection plus $10.60 gallon per day of capacity remains the same. C, interim or final billing request at $35. And 3, the rate change and interim final billing request would go into effect on all water and sewer usage with the billing period starting after the spring 2023 billings.
Thank you, Ethan. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Don. Any further discussion?
Just want to thank Aaron and Annie for all of their hard work.
Dan too.
And Dan, too.
Yeah.
Dan,
Don't forget, I didn't see Dan over there.
he's hyped.
All right. All those in favor of that long motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay.
No.
Okay. Motion passes 3-1. And let's move on to the next one.
Next
Water?
would be the
Water and Sewer Capital Plan.
Is that one on page 16?
Of the
Yeah.
PDF.
Okay. Checking.
that one was fairly simple.
Somebody read the motion? Or you got it, or do you have any?
comments?
It's not
Anybody?
it's not as detailed as the other one.
Okay. I make the motion that the select board approve the future year 24 water sewer budget plan and capital layout for future year 24 to 28.
Right. Thanks, Ethan. Thank you, Don. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Okay, motion passes 3-1. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
We will move on to our next business item. 6E, presentation and discussion of Town of Essex logo proofs. It's Greg or Marguerite?
I believe Tammy is with
Or
us.
Tammy?
Yep, she is.
Oh, there is Tammy.
You need to go to page 87.
Hello.
Oh, yours is split up. Oh,
Mine's different.
You ready?
all right.
All right.
Technical.
Okay, Tammy, go ahead.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm with you tonight because I had approached the select board back in December about moving forward with a Town of Essex logo and trying to get that completed before we could move on to doing our website redesign work. So you had authorized me to go ahead and start that process. So the first thing I did was assemble a committee made up of various department representatives. And we decided to, first of all, we just kind of laid out like what our needs were. We decided that the Essex logo should provide an identity and that speaks to who the people in Essex are. The logo needs to be available to do several different types of applications, such as website and social media, obviously for the website redesign work and all of that. It would also need to be in published materials that are used for everything from rec programs to, other brochures, annual reports, whatever, posters. Letterhead and business cards. So whatever it is we have must be able to shrink down to something very small and still be readable and legible so that if you get too far too detailed, you're not going to be able to see those details in something that small. Vehicle decals. If Public Works or our fire or any of our other vehicles, we'd like to have some sort of a decal on there. We may want to use like metallic gold, which is often used in some of the decals, and embroidered clothing. Many of our departments have work clothing and they do embroidery. So if you start working with embroidery, again, the details get lost if you're going far too small. So we want to kind of stick with something simple and bolder. It must take on different formats. So we must be able to put, Town of Essex, Essex VT, different types of committees. And in our committee work, we also discussed the existing logos that we have. So Essex Police Department, which also covers the city, would be keeping their logo, and the library just put money forth to have a brand new logo, so they're going to be keeping their logo. But we did invite them for their to participate as far as like to provide us feedback. And one of the things that we got from Caitlin at the library was, if we could stick in the same color palette, that probably would help to tie things together. Some common themes we were looking at were town meets country, so that we have like houses and businesses with barns and plow fields, the mountains and the water, representing Indian Brook, and the water tower, possibly maybe trees and forest. And then the final step to all of this was to kind of do a preview of what other Vermont towns have for logos, what works, what doesn't work, and also what's other Civic Plus municipalities who use Civic Plus are doing. We started off with a graphic designer. Some of the work was, what we were getting for product was very, very small and detailed, and we were having a difficult time bringing it into other applications. So we decided to shift gears and try doing this work in-house. So I have been working with Robin Earl Designs, who is provided some free consultation and advice to us. Robin's very experienced. He has a degree as a business. He knows what he's doing, and he was very helpful in helping us put together some vector designs in-house, and this provides us flexibility to be able to create a primary logo, but also have this logo be able to change colors. We can adapt it to apply to different signage, many different uses. So in your packet, you have a presentation that has, there are actually 6 logo drafts in there. One of them is actually basically the same thing, but just different. And in those, I provided examples of some of the different variations that we might want to use. Those are just concepts. These are concepts only, and they're not approved designs by any department. I should stress that. But that's just to give you an idea of like how really kind of complex this project kind of became. But you know, nonetheless, this is where we're at. So I wanted to just give you an idea that this is what we were thinking of when we were working on this project. My suggestion would be that if these designs are, I guess if they pass the mustard with all of you folks, I would suggest that maybe moving forward, you could select maybe at least 3 of those designs. You could select all 6 if you wanted to, or maybe 4, maybe choosing one of the colors of the first 3. And then the recommendation would be to go ahead and put this into a public survey that the public can vote. We can have people just send in which one they like the best, and then I could provide those results to the board at your next meeting, where hopefully maybe we could do an approval and get this logo implemented, so that we have a lot of things waiting on getting this logo in place. Not just branding and such, which was actually mentioned a bit earlier in this meeting, but that's one of the things we're anxious to do. But again, the redesign work is really kind of on hold for all of this. We have a sign downtown. We're waiting to put the sign up. So definitely a little bit of fire under me to try to get this done. So I would open it up to all of you if you have any questions or comments or suggestions.
Questions or comments?
Well, I guess I'm gonna open a can of worms here, but I like the one that the library came up with better than any of the ones that I see here. I like their colors, and I think that their colors and their scheme could be fit into what you need to put on to both fire and rescue and the police and the town trucks. I like it because it's plain and simple, and it is more inviting than what I see in the rest of these.
So the police department's gonna change their logo?
No.
No.
No, it's gonna no.
Just the fire.
The fire's gonna fit in. The logo will fit in there.
In there. I'm gonna jump in and say that I like some of the idea of the design. I don't understand the copy paste with the blue circle from the police department on all of the public works design. Do like the incorporation of the tower and the barns and the fields. The one with the mountains and the triangle pond. Not my favorite. I just didn't know if fire department was involved in helping create their logo.
Yes. So we had a member of the fire department on our board. I wouldn't say the whole fire department was involved. I've had a couple of emails with Charlie, and we had one member on the board. One of the we did discuss the existing Essex Free Library logo, and as I mentioned, Caitlin also participated in this. So there were a couple of problems with using their logo. Is one that it was paid for by the Friends of Essex Free Library. It wasn't actually a town. The town didn't pay for that logo, from my understanding. It didn't sound like they were really wanting to give up their logo and their identity over to the town. They kind of liked their logo. The other issue we had with that was that one of the comments we received from the fire department representative we had was that they really weren't interested in a rainbow look on the fire department trucks. So they were pushing pretty hard for the water tower. I guess one of the really difficult things in all of this was trying to, meet everybody's kind of wish list, because there's a lot of different uses. Trying to keep it as simple as possible, but trying to keep as many of the elements that we were hoping to target, such as the mountains, the water, the tower, the barn, the town. We removed kind of like the little path that's in the existing logo, just because we really didn't know where the path went. We said, well, that's really not maybe an important part. So we put plow fields there, kind of instead. But yeah, so to answer your question, as far as fire department was involved in this, also, Ethan, the blue or the round blue public works, that would be a public works example. I mean, they can change the colors of that. Public or the police department doesn't have, they are keeping their logo. They have the Essex Saxon knives on theirs. It's the coat of arms. So they'll be keeping theirs, but
it just reminds me of if it said Colchester on it, it reminds me of the old Colchester logo that used to be on all their trucks, the bright blue sticker. So I was just curious.
yeah.
Very similar to the police department. I'm no fashion designer, but baby blue on red isn't my choice.
The favorite. Right. Well, we do have, there's some versions of that with an orange, kind of an orange color. There's, so we have other different versions we can do of that. So again, those are just concepts and only to kind of provide you with the full picture of what it is we're trying to accomplish. So.
I was just going to suggest that you put it all out to the public, give them all the options to look at. And I would also suggest that maybe you include a question with that public survey to ask the residents what they think of when it comes to Essex. I mean, you think of Jericho, you think of Snowflake Bentley. They have it in their logo. You might be surprised if you ask enough people in Essex to find out that everybody has something that you go, oh yeah, that's right, that isn't represented on the logo. So I would just give that as a suggestion.
And the Red Mill.
And
And the Red Mill in Jericho.
Yeah. The round barn.
Mhm.
The church is that right?
Richmond.
Wasn't? Oh, that's Richmond. But
I guess I would ask, why is it so important to have the tower in this? I mean, I
Well,
have
so- yeah, it was just something, I think to that, partially answer that question, Kendall, when we were thinking about it as staff, and I shouldn't speak too much for Tammy because she did, and her team did a lot of the work, but we were looking at what is something that identifies as Essex, and the tower is something that is not anywhere else except for someplace in apparently Wisconsin.
Yeah.
But something that stood out as Essex. That was part of the reason behind the tower specifically being in a lot of these designs. But
Yeah.
Tammy, feel free to elaborate on that.
When I
please.
look at it, I have to say it reminds me of a silo near the barn. It doesn't tell me that that's a water tower or a historic anything. It's like
and it's too far away from the barn.
I'm just
See, that's why I would suggest that you ask residents, because you might be surprised. Maybe everybody in Essex thinks, oh yeah, the water tower is Essex. So
That was
So,
yeah.
yeah.
I'm sorry. I was just gonna say that was remember I didn't go back and look at the minutes from the planning meeting that we had, but at my first planning meeting on the select board, this was one of the topics that came up and we addressed as a priority for us was a brand and a logo and all of that. And during that conversation, I know we had a million other things going on last year, but during that conversation, one of the biggest things that we stressed was that, we did a bunch of community outreach to, however we were going to design it. So I'll just echo what Kendall said, really send out, I would send out all of the designs and say the same thing, just a simple question. What do you see when you think of Essex, or whatever? And then, maybe like we don't have to have a drawing contest of people to draw their own, but maybe some ideas of how they'd like to see it, and then like what colors represent Essex. And I'm not saying this out of to say it the wrong way, but I see all the blue and gold, and I just think of the high school. I think that that's, we're incorporating ourselves as the high school. I'm not opposed to any colors. I just want to be sure that we pick either neutral colors or colors that represent Essex as the town of Essex and only the town of Essex. I just wanted to share my couple spots on that.
So yeah, a lot of these are variations on a similar theme. I like the one that says Red Barn because it has the more color to it.
Right.
Because it has the red barn in there, and I also like the one. I really like the plow fields out front in the front. I like that a lot. I think it brings stuff together. I also like the one that's called Town Tower and Barn, but it doesn't have the plow fields. And it doesn't seem like there's any reason why it can't, but I don't know. I that's just my thoughts on which ones I prefer. The triangle one I thought was interesting, but I didn't like the way it looked on the truck. But again, it might because you're doing examples.
It is. Yeah.
So I'm
The only thing I would just comment to you about I like the barns and stuff too, but the town tower barn looks like a farm in front of a city with a little bit of a lawn. That's just my perception of how I looked at it, but I see a old farm sitting there with a city growing around it. But that's just how I saw it.
I agree with Kendall that we really should put it out for public opinion and see if they come up with
I do see a hand up in the room.
different ideas.
So Betsy, come on up. Give us your comments.
So, I think if you were going to look for something, and what is the identifier for Essex is Indian Brook and Chapin Farms. I think that those are nice, and I think people all relate to them.
Right. Thank you. Any other public comments? Ken, come on up.
So, in marketing, a logo is supposed to represent a brand. So my question is, what is the brand this logo represents? I think I heard one suggestion, Tammy, if I heard it correctly, it was where farm meets town. Was that right?
Town meets country.
Meets country, which might be a valid brand. But brand is it's the whole town. It represents the whole town. So it's really crucial to have buy-in. If you remember, there was a fiasco for Vermont. Vermont came up with a brand. A lot goes on when the skis come off. That was developed by a marketing company. It did not last. Not a good brand, not a good slogan. So that's why it's so important to make sure you have buy-in right from the get-go. The logo represents the brand. The brand comes first. So I think that needs to be nailed down first. Then the logo would follow. It'll be a lot easier. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Ken. Any other public comment or questions? So, board members, what do we want to do? Ethan, go ahead.
I just have one more comment I was just scrolling through the other logos real quick because I was thinking about what Ken just said about, representing the whole town. Two that really stand out to me is Heinsberg and Stowe. Because I can envision exactly where it is. Like Heinsberg, it's Mechanicsville Road. Looking over, I'm not gonna remember the name of the pond now.
Iroquois, Lake
Yeah,
Iroquois?
Lake Iroquois. I know, that's probably Fayetteville Road right there. Looking down. But I think that that's important. I didn't think of that until he had mentioned it. I think that that's important to reference, or maybe not reference, but to see where you are. You know what I mean? If that makes any sense. But I just rambled, but I was inspired by that, so thank you, Ken.
Yeah, our view like that has telephone wires going through it. It's, driving down Route 15, it's all utilities in the way. But
No
yeah,
telephone wires on Towers Road.
no, no.
But yeah,
Yeah, I think right. The question is, and I guess you could do a version of that, you know, and I'm not saying this one exactly, but if you had to do one that had fine detail in it, you just leave out the fine details.
represent where you are, and kind of.
Yeah, and I don't know what that point, that sparking point is in Essex, right? I think there was, the way this looked, you know, it was put together, is you take the, you know, the water tower at one end of town and farms at the other. I don't know.
Let's send it out.
So
I'd rather get public input before
Yeah.
we make a decision.
yeah. That, I guess, you know, that you know, the question was, do we just go back for a complete redesign, or are these ones okay to go out with? I think that's maybe the question that. And do we want to use all of them, or?
I would send them out and let people have input and or suggestions, and then if they come up with a better suggestion, then we'll. Or Tammy will have to try to implement.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I see personally. I see a lot of good ideas and different designs in each one of the logos, but not particularly one that grabs me. I mean, one of my favorites was the country gold, because it, you know, to me, I saw the you couldn't really tell the barn, and the only thing I would say is throw some white in there to give some outlines in the building. But
Yes.
I see Indian Brook, I see Indian, you know, the reservoir, and then I see, you know, possibly Mount Mansfield.
See, that was my thing. When you come down the Route 15 corridor, especially as the sun is shining on Mount Mansfield with the white when it's got snow on it, and it's just that whole corridor as you're coming down. It's so beautiful, and there's, you know, there's nothing. I don't see that in any of this. I just don't.
And then the plowed field. I think of, you know, crossing on to 128 right as you're in between the double bridges. And looking to your right, and there's a cornfield, and Mount Mansfield is broad right behind.
Yep.
But that's where I was. The only thing I was getting at was, you know, having a location to just picture. Maybe it's not a reservoir. Maybe it is a brook. Maybe that was a brook in that original logo, not a path. You know what I mean? I don't know. Is it the Browns River? Is is it Indian Brook? Is it Saybrook? Is it, you know? I don't know. But to me, when I think of Essex, I don't, you know, and I'm not saying Indian Brook's not a big part of Essex, but if you were traveling through Essex, where would you be able to locate Indian Brook just by, you know, driving along?
Now you gotta know where it is.
You gotta know where it is, you know. So I don't know.
It's a little difficult to like put a picture of, like, you know, that, like, the scenery that you're explaining without going into a lot of detail. And I think that's where we're at a little bit of a, I'm not sure if I can give you what you want. Because even if you added, like, say you were to add some spruce trees into this, like, oh, that would make sense, right? We have forests, we have, you know, trees, but you end up with so much detail in those trees that it would look good in many applications, but in some other things, it's going to be really difficult for us to use. So, you know, I guess this is kind of a where we're trying to have the elements there so that you do have the mountain line, you've got the water, which is Indian Brook, you've got the tower, whether you want the tower or not, it could be considered even part of the city if somebody doesn't recognize the tower. The barn shape, the plow fields, the elements are all there. Does it really look like one particular spot? Probably not, because there's not probably one particular spot that has all of those things, unless you were to subtract some of those things. So if you hadn't wanted just Indian Brook, for instance, but then you're going to end up with just some pretty simple looking mountains and some pretty simple looking water. And I'm not sure it would be recognizable when you scale it down like that. Does that make sense at all? I'm not sure if I don't know if I can really give you what you're looking for. I mean, you could do some highly detailed work if you did something like Milton's has got like a lot of stuff going on, but it really doesn't translate well into something small. Sorry, Milton, if anybody from Milton is watching, but and maybe they've got something else, but I think that, that's kind of where the struggle lies in trying to make something that's going to meet all of the needs that we have for it.
I'm from Milton, and I see the Lake Arrowhead Dam clear as day.
It is good. Yeah.
And everybody that drives through Milton sees it.
Yeah, I was actually told that that you can recognize it really well, but there's a lot of detail there. There's a lot of detail there, and I think trying to embroider that would be really, you'd lose some of that.
Yep. And I didn't mean like Heinsberg that's like a picture, because it's just like probably 4 different sceneries, like views on a drive that they kind of just overlaid on each other. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm no designer. I just went through the logo process, and I paid a guy, almost $200 to sit down with me and send it back and forth with me 25 times to pick it out. But I incorporated a lot of different things into one picture, and then like the color thing, that's where it's really important to either have a picture like with Heinsberg, or to have like with the silhouettes that you did there. Like there's got to be some sort of more neutralized distinguishing in the breaks in the buildings and things like that. Like for example, with the silhouette, there's breaks in the buildings, and the barn has a door and a window, because that logo can be changed. And this is how he explained it to me when I did the process. Is you can change those colors to go on a gray shirt, on a blue shirt, on a red shirt, on a red truck, on a fire truck, on whatever. So when you have that, it's either a picture that's going to be encapsulated as a picture, or it's a logo that's going to be changed in colors. But it has to be clearly distinguished. And I think that's the problem with the other ones, is they want to be a picture, but they're a silhouette that have no distinguish in the boundaries. If that makes any sense.
I think it makes a lot of sense, Ethan, actually. You really do. What you're saying is very spot on. I think that the silhouette, my own personal view on this is that the silhouette is the best one. Because it's very simple. You can tell that that's a barn, the tower, all of the things, and just exactly for the reasons you just explained. I think that's probably one of the best options. Very easy. It can be changed. The color can be changed. You can throw that onto a t-shirt. You can reverse it. There's a lot of it would be the easiest one to use and adapt to many different things. And it's clean. It's really and I think the colors, regarding colors, we're trying to stay in so the colors that are chosen there are the exact colors that are in the library logo. Exactly, like the same green, the same blue. And in some of these instances, such as in the silhouette one, you have just blue and green, which are those colors. And I think, blue and green is just the water, the mountains. I guess that's where we were going with that. But, I would be surprised if people came back and said, I think red represents us. I mean, I would be surprised by that. But I mean, I suppose somebody may decide that there's a different color out there that's more representative of the town.
All right, so what do you want to have Tammy do? Just take all the designs that are here and get opinions on them? And is that going to work for you, Tammy, or did you really want us to whittle it down?
I'm fine with which. Yes, if you think that's what you would like to do, I think my only question would be is that if you want me to add a question in there about what do you think represents your, or what do you think of when you think Essex, or am I asking that question so that if people say, I don't want any of the options, this is what I want? Is that how you want that question to be asked, or?
We want to have an open.
Do you see Essex represented in any of these logos?
And
And if not,
How?
what would you like to see?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I would think you just want like a poll from the public, you know? I mean, if you get 100 answers that say water tower and that's the top one, well, obviously most of the people that responded, there's your top Essex representative or India Brook or whatever it is.
Does that work if you word it that way?
But what do you do with that information, I guess, is the question.
Yeah.
Because
Then we go back and look at what we've got.
the intent here is to try to turn this around reasonably quickly so that we can start work on the website update. Which
And I do understand that, but I think we need to have a say in this. This is what Essex is. This is our brand, and this is, they voted as a new town. We're a town. We need to come together to make a decision. You know.
I may be mistaken, but when they did the Vermont quarters and stuff, I mean, a lot of people got involved with that, and they narrowed a couple things down of, you know, what was it, Camel's Hump, fat buckets, and things like that, and then they put those into the logo. The public didn't really design the logo; they basically just picked the top representative of Vermont.
Right.
So if they come back and they say Indian Brook, or in mountains, I mean, if they pick some of the options that are already there, unless you came up with, say, set buckets came up as the number one thing, that's about the only thing that's not there.
Right.
Yeah.
How about if we put all the logos out to the public? We have a question to the effect of does one of these really strike you as representing Essex, or should we make another attempt? And regardless, what do you think of, what's the first one or two or three things that come to mind when you think about Essex? We'll ask for really short answers, and Tammy, you and I can talk. Maybe we do an open-ended question just about, you know, what's your general feedback on the options here, and maybe we can see what we get and come back in a couple of weeks or so. Tammy, does that sound right?
It does. And
Right. Does that sound doable?
it does. I would only caution that if you hear, you know, if there's a comment saying, well, I think this, just keep in mind that's however many people, in the scheme of however many people are going to answer this, I guess. I guess I just wouldn't want to just throw everything away just because one person said something different, you know, or a handful of people said something different. There is a lot of time put into this, so I'm just gonna say that. So I'm fine with doing that.
Just make minor changes.
Right. We could certainly do that. So like if, say, people are like, I don't think water tower, say water tower doesn't show up there at all, we could remove the water tower. We could do that. That was you know, it was really something the fire department wanted in there. So that's why it really did kind of make the mark, because that was one of their requests. But maybe we could put the water tower just on the fire departments. You know, I don't know. Maybe they'll just go with a different designer. I don't, you know, that's a whole other idea too. So it could happen that way. I can work with Greg and we can come up with another question so that if none of the options are popular, we can just do something different.
I mean, I guess that is a question that I didn't ask when I asked it before, but if the Essex Police Department is keeping their logo, does the Essex Fire Department have a desire to change their logo? Or are they happy with what they had? Or they just want to represent the 50-year anniversary? I was a little confused in the way that it was written.
Right. My understanding, they do have a patch that has a logo on it, but I don't think they have like a vectorized logo, something that they can use and adapt onto other things. the original intent was, you know, we'd like to possibly get a 50-year commemorative piece out of this and working with you. Whether or not any of these concepts are going to work for them, I don't know. I do have a few that have like a 50-year on there. And I've had a couple of conversations with Charlie on that. You know, they may very well decide to just go ahead and do something different because they may be having different uses for theirs. So that's fine if they wanted to do that. But I think the initial request was to try to come up with something for their 50-year.
Okay. So I don't know if that's raises a good point or not, but do we focus more on not the fire department because we're not focusing on the police department? We focus on public works and town, you know, the town
Well, I don't
administrative
think we need to
logos.
decide that tonight. I mean,
Well, no, but it's just if you're gonna, you know, if there's gonna be more work put into it, and it sounds like it's been a lot of work. I mean, we're not changing Parks and Rec, we're not changing the police department, we're not changing Explore Essex, we're not. You know what I mean? Like I said, I didn't understand.
so if
Fire
I think
department wanted to
what
have
Tammy's saying
50
is,
year.
sorry.
I was just, you know, just thinking if they weren't gonna be on board and they wanted the water tower, they wanted to design their own. Maybe we should let them design their own and bring it to us separately as a 50-year patch and the water tower and however they saw their department, and then like we did with, you know, Parks and Rec and police department. So
Yeah, so if the public comes back and say we hate the water tower, take it off, then we can go to the fire department and say, you know, the public really asked us to take it off. You're free to do your own logo. They're free to do their own logo in any case.
Yeah.
I don't think we should explicitly exclude them and say you can't use our logo. I don't think we would say that. So I'm not sure what.
yeah, I just didn't want us to, you know, have to try and come up with a logo and say, hey, here's your logo, and them not want that logo. We spent time to incorporate it to fit the fire department, and then they don't want it. You know what I mean? That's wasted time and staff. So I guess the question I was asking is, do they actually want a logo from us, or did they have an idea on how to come up with their own?
Right.
Question
First of all, I mean, the fire department has had a representative
on the
on
board.
this committee, so they know what's happening. They know that we're working on it, and that Tammy's working on it, and the team is working on it, and someone from the fire department is working on it.
Okay.
I think when it's, you know, part of the goal behind this logo is to find something that any department can use, and maybe it has the town of Essex around it when it goes in the public works truck, or it could go on the fire truck that way. Maybe you put the like the axe behind it, or it's, you know, can be something that goes into bigger logo, whether that's logo for Parks and Rec or police down the road or the town of Essex, but it's something that can be used on for any number of departments, any number of equipment, any number of clothing, anything like that.
Yeah, I would say that those examples that you see in front of you are not meant to be examples as, oh, this is what we're going to have. Is what we have a possibility? Like, is that something we can easily put onto something else? And I think that's what I think that's primarily why that exercise is important, to be able to create those other decals and to see like, oh, might be how we would use it on a shirt or how we would use it here. So to show that it would work and able to do that. As a matter of fact, like if you get something that some of the early ones that we were looking at had so much detail in it. The first test I did with those was shrink it down to the size of what I would see like on a letterhead or a business card. And then I couldn't even tell what the details were anymore. So these are kind of like tests. They pass the test type of thing. I think if they were to go to the public for a vote, you would just want to put forth the primary logo and vote on that one logo. You wouldn't have these full pictures. These are more examples for the select board to see. This is why these are simple. This is why there's not a lot of telephone lines and fences and things have the little tiny lines in them.
All right, we okay with sending Tammy off to do more work?
With a big thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Tammy. This is a big step. All right. You move on? Okay, we'll move on to presentation and discussion of fiscal year 2023 budget versus actuals update.
Hi, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Evening.
So the purpose of this memo is to kind of give the board a synopsis of where we stand in the general fund for the first 10 months of the year. So as a reference point, 83% represents 10 out of 12 months. So that's kind of the percentage number that I use to just compare where we are and kind of where we need to be. I've been reaching out to departments starting last week, having conversations, meetings, emails about their expectations on where they're going to land, barriers that are in the way, or also opportunities to spend money where we are currently underspent. For example, in public works, we've had a lighter winter season, so there's an opportunity there to increase our springtime projects, if you will, whether it be streetscapes, sidewalks, other maintenance items that might not be available to us within the current budget framework based on the dollar amount that was approved earlier. So in the memo, I've gone through and quickly discussed kind of each department. So, some are obviously larger impacts on the budget than others, especially public works. Aaron and Ann and I met last Friday to discuss some of those opportunities as well. What I did not mention in this memo is we also had a discussion about where the water and sewer budgets are landing as well, but I've kept this memo just to the general fund. So generally speaking, there's also unfilled job vacancies and some supply chain issues that are affecting some of our purchases, particularly in the fire department and with police department vehicles. So there may be a need to possibly assign fund balance to next year, as the board has done in the previous year with some fire equipment and some other items like that. So that is kind of the basic overall overview. I don't know if you have any particular questions about the memo or anything there.
As finance director, do you have any real concerns with what you're seeing here?
I do not have a lot of concerns with it. Generally speaking, we're spending at about 75% as of the end of April versus the 83% in terms of a normal timeline. Obviously, some funds will spend more this time of year, like the rec department and other areas. So I don't feel like we're going to be overrunning our budget. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Ethan.
I was just curious for the fuel cost under buildings. Is that heating fuel or diesel fuel?
Yes.
I believe most of that is heating fuel, but maybe Tom could speak
It's
to that.
gasoline.
It is diesel. Okay.
Yeah.
And then my next question was going to be, I don't know if anybody knows this off the top of their head. I'm sure Tom does, but how many gallons of storage do we have over there for diesel fuel?
I believe the tank is a 2,000 gallon tank. And when periods like this happen, we like to try and
Fill it.
top them off.
Okay, that's gonna be my question. Right, and it's the cheapest it's been in 3 years. So
Exactly.
that was my question. Thank you. I'm sure I was curious as to, did we just fill up all of our tanks at a record price, and that's reflected in this 88% spending? So that would answer my question and will help us next year. So, thank you.
Any other questions? Kendall, you got anything?
It's good. I assume the revenues are good too, so.
Yeah, the tax revenues are in line. We received some grant revenues as well. So the revenue side is also on par.
Thank you.
So what is your intent with this?
So the intent with this is to make actionable plans with each department so that the ending expenses for the fiscal year end up near the budget. Obviously, that won't mean every line item looks the same, So we've underspent for salt, sand, and gravel. There will continue to be some spending and purchasing there with the idea that current rates will be less than future. But there's also capacity for us to, use some of that line item for an extra sidewalk or more streetscape maintenance or things of that nature, using Public Works as an example.
Okay. Is your intent to publish this periodically, or is just a end of the year, getting close to the end of the year, use it or lose it question, or is it a?
Well, I think in terms of this memo, this can be, it's going to be a breathable document where we're going to be continuously looking at it. We're already starting to look at numbers from May 15th, if you will, because we've gone through a couple AP cycles and another payroll. So, it's going to be a continuous working point with the departments. And if you'd like it to be continued, to be reflected in future board meetings, we can do that as well.
Yeah, and that was kind of what we've talked about. Dan and Marguerite and I have quite possibly making this more of a periodic thing. And I asked Dan to come here tonight. In the future, probably just going to be a reading file item, something for you to see. But wanted to have Dan here tonight as the first time, get your feedback on is this a useful format? Is there anything that you definitely want to keep in there? Is there anything that's missing? Just giving Dan some feedback because he probably is not going to be before you every time this gets presented.
I
Obviously
truly
adjust.
appreciated what I read. It helped me understand where we were and what was going on. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks.
This is great because now you can see where you are. I mean, you should let the public know this. I mean, just about everybody's either dead on target or under or just slightly over in this crazy year. Kudos. Great. Awesome. Keep it coming.
Yeah, and the idea is obviously we still have 6 weeks now, 7 weeks back then to act on it and to, try and land fiscal year 23 where we anticipated.
Yeah, and as you said, not everybody spends linearly.
Right. Yes. Yeah, we certainly want to, consider seasonality and other influences that might not be under our control, with the assigned fund balance and the way supply chains are operating.
Yeah, the other thing that I see it could highlight, and you mentioned it, was if you've got something that is out of your control that you can't spend it in the current fiscal year, and you're gonna, make sure you always come and ask for the fund balance to cover that if it's something that goes across into the next year. I know, Dennis used to come back and ask for paving all the time. Said, we couldn't get all the paving done in the before June 30th, and we're going to lose the money if we don't. But we got the ability to do the work.
Yeah,
those kind of things. And of course, on the police car, we don't want to lose that.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the biggest example. Yeah. Ron's been telling us for months that it's just probably not going to happen in time. So.
So you anticipating a quarterly update on this kind of thing for us? Or?
I think a quarterly would be appropriate. I mean, obviously at this time of year, it's something we're going to monitor a lot as we get toward June 30th. But I think a quarterly one is certainly
it's a working document for you, and that you're working it week by week. And, for us, I think quarterly seems reasonable.
Yeah, I might just suggest that maybe towards the end of the fiscal year, maybe the last 2 months, other than that, quarterly, just so that we could see where it actually goes.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Maybe the first 3 quarters are quarterlies, and then as we, get to these decision points and where department heads can take action, then it can be, whether it's a monthly or interim, even more.
So is that getting too much into your business?
Not really. I mean, this is we're trying to do this. We can inform the public of where we're at. Dan and I and Marguerite can talk a little bit. Kendall, you're right. This is the time of year we're paying more attention to it. It's also the time of year where they're spending a lot of time on fiscal year end wrap up. So I just want to figure out what's the right balance of making sure we're on the right pace and making sure you're informed about it. We can talk about that and propose something.
Yeah, and I think just generally speaking for my department, I mean, we've hired an assistant finance director at the end of March, so it's helped with our capacity. And obviously, we've gone through all the budget process now that the water and sewer and that capital plan has gone through as well, so it allows us to be a little more proactive rather than developing budgets. We can, look at what's going on with a little sharper pencil.
And I think it goes to the improving communication so that the board knows what's happening.
Yeah, it's transparency
Yeah.
to the public as well. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I just don't want to overburden you with too frequent reporting. If we also get the audit report when that comes out later in the year too. So
This is easier to understand.
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if I could make a comment really quick, I would say, really after the month of June, like at the beginning of the month or wherever our meeting lands, I think it lands around the 20th, right? 21st, something like that. At that point, we don't need him to do an audit of himself to give to us, just, the updates up until that point. Then once the year's over, it's like go through the audit process and then kind of more just informational of here's where we're at. Okay, that's our last meeting for the end of the year. Would you want to do this or that or whatever? Or maybe it's nothing. And then when the end of the year comes, it's just wait for the audit. You know what I mean? If that makes
26th.
sense. Yeah.
June 26th.
June 26th.
All right, so you can, Dan, figure out what frequency you want to give it to us this time of year, but quarterly other than that?
Yeah.
That
Sure.
work?
Mhm.
Pretty good with that? All right. All right.
Thank you, Dan,
All right.
very
Thank
much.
Thank you so much. Yes. You don't need anything more from us on that.
I'm good. Do you have anything else you're looking for? Any other direction?
Nope.
All right.
Okay. All right.
Thank
Great.
you all.
Okay. Now let's see. Next item. Actually, I'll check and see. No Ray Garofano yet. We on G now? Make sure I'm not skipping anything. Okay, discussion about charter changes proposed by the Charter Review Committee. So back when we got the recommendations from the Charter Review Committee, there was a lot of content there, and we chose 5 questions to go to the voters with. And so the question here, I mean, and at the time, there was some discussion about following up throughout this coming year to be prepared for another round of charter change questions for next year. I guess the question for us is how do we want to have that go forward with that path? Do we want to go forward with it, and how do we want to do it? There's 2 ways I see we could do it. There were topics, like there were. I did pull up the memo here somewhere that has. There were revisions to our ordinance adoption process. There was an option for select board members to decline payment. There were different topics that were in there. Do we want to go through the list of topics and prioritize them? Or the other way would be to go chapter by chapter, just go through the document, the proposed document, so that we're catching all of the wording changes that may not necessarily be associated with a specific topic. So 2 questions. Should we go forward with all that? And the other is, how do you want to do it? Ethan.
So I have a little bit of dyslexia and computers really bother me in general. I didn't have time to print this out. I had a really hard time scrolling back and forth and trying to remember what it said here and there. So I would like to see it more in front of me on what's different, or maybe on top of each other of what's different, one in red, or just the changes in red.
Yep.
And then my only other spiel I wanted to say was, maybe we could just kick this to the charter committee real quick and say, do you have 3 priorities or 4 priorities or 5 priorities? We have 5 out right now that are still being worked on. So I just didn't know if we wanted to pick 1 or 2 or. But I definitely couldn't. I couldn't do the back and forth.
Yeah, no. So to comment on that is, I actually started doing that. I did the first 2 chapters, and I made a a change control document where it shows the stuff that's coming out crossed out in red, the new stuff's coming in blue. But rather than presenting that to you and saying, this is the way we're going to do it, I wanted to ask the question, do we want to do it that way, or do we want to do it on a by topic? And so, it's work to do it. It could be done. We could say, we could do 2 chapters a month kind of thing.
I was gonna say one, but that's
Yeah.
how many total chapters are you looking at to change?
There are 12 chapters.
We have to do too.
Some of them are more extensive than others.
No.
And some,
yeah.
yeah.
So this is just wording changes? No.
Well, no, there are things in there. There's a creation of a commission on public safety. There's a creation of an energy coordinator.
Well, the Commission on Public Safety can go because you elected to do a CAB.
Well, but
No?
well, if I may,
Yeah,
it can. But I think, how do you want to get there? And
Okay.
do you want to get there by saying, okay, there's a preamble. You want to take up a preamble, yes or no? Okay, next chapter is the corporate powers of the town. I don't know if there's any changes there, but just go through and, okay,
Yep.
once we get to the discussion about
To it
the
and then
safety
take it.
committee, either we just take it out or you discuss it.
Right.
Or do you want to say,
Right.
let's find out, I guess somewhere
So-
there, topic by topic. Do you want to do it in order of appearance, or do you want to highlight? All right, chapter 7 has a lot of stuff you want to tackle, so you do chapter 7.
I just personally need more than Saturday, Sunday to read this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So if we can
yeah.
get the changes in a document and get it sent out ASAP, and then say we're gonna do blockety block at a time.
I can't do
But
it.
how do you want me to present those changes?
But we're not going to change it until we discuss it, Ethan.
I know, but I have to be able to read what we're discussing on what we're
Okay, so if
changing.
we did it
You have changes
2 chapters
written.
at a time,
Yeah,
and I didn't give you anything else, just the 2 chapters, could you do
yeah, I
it
can
that
do that.
way?
Yeah,
All right. So if we did 2 chapters in June, August, September, October, and November. Skipping July because we only had 1 meeting. Yes.
Right.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm just saying that would do you 12,
I
but
mean some chapters are like
some are
chapters-
really short.
Yeah,
so
very short.
8 pages, 10 pages.
And some are really long, and some of them
Right.
some pretty
So
significant changes that might warrant a
Yeah.
fair amount of.
So some of
discussion.
them could take more than 1 meeting to get through, depending on how much time you want. And then,
I mean, I won't want to do more than 2. I know that.
I don't want to be
I don't
broken really quick, but really quick. I'm a broken record right now, but I know we have to discuss this stuff, but we have something proposed to us.
Mhm.
Can we at least get that in the
Yeah,
straight?
yeah. And so,
I'm sure we
I-
have
I-
it from before. I could probably go back, but
did we get one of those from somebody?
I'm gonna have to. There was a lot of
we did.
there was a lot of different ways this was presented, and this was what you see now is kind of what we had
Yeah.
worked off of when it was presented before. If I can hazard a guess, it sounds like there's not any burning desire to jump right into this topic or that topic.
No.
I think it's gonna help staff and help me if I can focus on 1, maybe 2 chapters at a time.
Yep.
And I think if we can, maybe we'll just start with let's presume that the reorganized charter will be approved by the legislature. So I propose that we start with the order of the reorganized charter that voters approved.
Mhm.
And I would say sure 1 or 2 chapters, but I would say before you plan on 2 chapters next month and 2 chapters a month after that, let's start with those 2 chapters and see how long it takes. And when those 2 are done, let's move on to the next 2.
yeah.
And if possible, maybe, especially for Ethan, if we just, even if we only did 2 a month, so give us the information for the first meeting, but we don't do anything until the second
Yeah,
meeting.
yeah.
And that gives us,
A little bit
Put it in the
more.
reading file so you have a chance to
Right.
look
Right.
at it.
would that work? I
Yeah,
mean,
because then I can
I-
print it. I don't have a printer at home, so
Yeah, I'm fine with that if you're fine with that. And then I think really to focus on those 2 because some of those chapters you might get through them in 1 meeting and it's a few tweaks and ready to go. And some of them might take 2, 3, 4 meetings
Oh,
of
I know.
discussion to get through some issues. So I think just really being able to highlight and hone in on those
Yeah.
2 chapters at a time.
Yeah,
Chapter
'cause
12 is
eight-
only one sentence.
Well, chapter 11 now, because 8 to 11 is only three. Not even. It's 1.5 pages. Chapter 8 to 11.
Well, we can just see how it goes, and we could always move it up. I mean, if we get
Yeah.
more than 2, and
There used to
let's
be
just do
12.
the first 2, and then
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I think when we
Maybe we deleted
I think
one.
we took.
I think I screwed it up and added another chapter.
That's all right.
Whatever. I'm just saying.
11's better than 12.
But if we did 2 a month, and that way we get the information the first
Yep.
meeting, and then we can be ready to discuss on the second meeting.
And I don't know if this is going to confuse things, but those really long chapters that are going to be contentious, if we just did that one chapter and then those ones where there's only 3 sentences in them, we did
Yeah.
3.
That's fine.
You know what I mean?
We
If
can
that
put some
helps
judge-
to
we can put
juggle.
some- we can put some judgment around that. Yeah.
That's fine.
And I
Awesome.
think too that we should leave out the language that's in front of the legislature now, so that
Well, we can't do that. We couldn't.
we can't change that anyway,
Right.
and it'd be confusing to have that.
Right.
Or we can highlight it. Take a look. If something was in there and is voted on, we can just highlight it in a section of, we'll put it in there, we'll show it, but it's under consideration of the legislature.
I just have a quick question, and I don't mean to make this even more confusing than I'm already confused. Is this going to be one item to vote on, just as a
I don't.
revision?
I don't know. We're probably gonna have to get some legal advice on that.
Okay, that was all. I just
Because if we add any unique powers, it probably has to be a unique question. But if we're just rearranging, changing words here and there,
it doesn't change anything.
I think I think it becomes a general rewrite, and you can just have one question.
Okay.
So I think it'll depend on where we end up. All right. Good enough for you?
I think I have
Okay.
direction. Thank you.
We can figure that out. So, okay. All right. So, the next agenda item is whether or not we want to go into executive session to talk about the interviews we had this evening, or do we wait until we have all the
I
interviews
still
done?
wait till we have them all.
Okay. You don't have anything. So, okay, we'll move on to consent.
Make the motion. We accept the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Don. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Ethan.
But before we vote on it, do we just want to double check that Ray's not in the office?
She's not there.
Okay.
For that. Any other discussion about the consent agenda?
I haven't figured this out of the minutes in the consent agenda.
Yes, they
Mhm.
are.
There's a change to the minutes. I voted no on the budget last meeting.
Wondered about that.
Ah.
You for that? Catch.
Is the facilities use policy in that as well?
That is a consent agenda, yes.
That is.
Yeah.
I just had the question about maybe that clause should be put in there for all of us, the municipal offices as well. This would be your emergency headquarters you'd
No,
need.
it's the police station.
Just
No, that's, yes, the police station is designated as the emergency operations for the town.
okay. So you guys all go there.
And the police chief's in charge. Or no
Yeah.
longer in charge
Yeah.
of that situation.
And I just had 2 more items. Sorry. Is the unrestricted water and sewer capital, is that in the reading file or in the consent?
Then consent.
That's consent.
Mm-hmm.
I just wondered if you could just explain that a little more. Do you have the 3.2 plus the 2 million total, or is that? I wasn't quite sure. It seemed like a lot of money.
Item G in the consent agenda.
Gotta get mine fixed.
I did have a question on the warrants too.
I believe as far as the water sewer that it's just saying that recommendations that we keep that money set aside as undesignated. It's available for capital. It's available for things that come up. If the board's not comfortable with that, I can get a more clear answer and confirm that with Dan and Aaron tomorrow, but I won't be able to do it tonight.
Yeah, no, I don't have a question about that. I just wondered if that is the total amount of capital or is that just this year's budget?
Oh, I don't know offhand. Sorry.
That was all.
You want to not approve it without that?
No. We can still approve it. I just had a question.
I can follow up with you on that.
You had other questions?
And on the warrants, I was just curious. I noticed there were a lot of fertilizer, or I assume that's all the various fields and parks and recs and all that stuff. I was just curious if there are any soil tests done to determine the amount of fertilizer that you put on, or is it just done professionally and they determine it?
I'm gonna have to get back to you on that one too.
Yeah, just a question because there's a significant outlay for fertilizer
What was the,
in the warrant.
Under warrant.
yeah, but what was the company that was written to?
There were a couple different companies.
Because I'm not sure if it's still applicable, but Aaron Smith over here in town did a lot of work with the rec department in the past, and he might still currently, and he does do soil samples yearly, but I'm not sure if it's, I didn't see exactly which company it was written to.
Yeah. I was just
Tom
curious.
might know about that a little bit, no.
I'm sure that it's done professionally, but there have been a couple places where they just put on a mass, just a certain amount
Yeah.
of fertilizer when it wasn't needed, and so I thought I would just mention it.
Yeah, good question. I'll find out.
That's it. Thank you.
Yep. Any other comments or questions about consent? So we have an adjustment to the minutes. Which minutes of May 1st or 8th? You
I think it
changed.
was the May 1st.
To clarify the vote result, indicating that Kendall voted no. All right. So,
I make the motion that we approve the consent agenda with the corrections.
okay, thank you, Don. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ethan. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving consent, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, motion passes 4-0. Reading file. Any comments?
I have some. I would like to thank the Essex Town Fire Department for their 50 years of service. I would like to wish Charlie Cole, Chief Cole, a successful healing from his surgery.
Mhm.
And I would like to thank Alan Batula, Lauren Gaffney Cohen, Mike Ando, and Michael Fink for their service to the various committees.
Thank you, Don. Well said. Anything else? Ethan.
I wrote this down earlier, and it had come up, but I just wanted to mention that I don't know. We may already do this, and I could have missed it, but Milton has been putting their public hearings for planning on their Facebook page. They've been getting a lot more outreach, people showing up to the meetings. I don't know if that's something that we do or don't do, but it may be something to consider in the future.
We are doing taking more advantage of our YouTube channel,
Yeah.
and Town Meeting TV covers one of the 2 planning commission meetings a month. The other one we're recording, and we've been posting them to YouTube. We might have missed one here or there, but we're getting into that habit.
Yeah, not necessarily posting the meeting on Facebook, but they're just like posting the yeah, we have to post in 3 spots or whatever.
Mhm.
Just using that as one of their spots to post about a public hearing, upcoming.
Oh, okay. I can. Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I can
Just to
check on that.
say,
I know we
hey,
do
there's this,
Front Porch Forum. I'll
Yeah,
check if we
yeah,
do others
but-
too. Yeah.
and then that was it.
All right. Anything else, Kendall?
I just had one question about the FEMA assessment that's going on about the Indian Brook Reservoir Dam.
Mhm.
It looks like there are some grants available and stuff and everything. Have they looked into hydropower at all? They have micro turbines now and things like that. Will that be taken in consideration when they redo the dam, potentially repair it, rehab it?
It's not anything I've heard about, but that doesn't mean it hasn't happened, and I can
Yeah,
ask
I would
questions
just
and find out.
Tom
Maybe
just perked up back here.
Oh.
I'm not sure.
So it's funny that you mentioned that, Kendall. To the Energy Committee, we...
Tom, do you want to come up and? Well, you don't have to yell, and anyone watching at home can hear you better on the mic
And see ya.
and see you.
So through the Energy Committee, we had that exact same discussion because we thought through some of the energy grants that are out there that we could tackle that. So our president of the committee, Will Dodge, he actually got in touch with the South Burlington Energy Committee guru because they do it with their water treatment plant. But because when they spill out their water out of their water treatment plant, it's almost a 100-foot drop.
Oh, wow.
And so it's economically feasible for them to do that. He kind of looked at it with Will Dodge and said, no, it's not economically feasible. So we put that to bed.
Okay.
But because there's not enough of a drop.
Correct.
To where it runs
Right.
over.
Correct. Correct. Yep.
Well,
We
thank
tried.
you for looking.
Yep. Sure.
All right, anything else? Okay, Don, your favorite part of the meeting.
I make the motion, we adjourn.
Thank you, Don. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ethan. Non-debatable. All those in favor, please say aye.
Thank you everyone for being here.
Opposed? Okay, we are adjourned. Yes, thank you everyone for attending. Oh, Lorraine, I see your hand up.
Yeah, after the meeting's adjourned. Sorry, Andy. It was just a quick comment on the micro turbines. There's also ones for wind, and Will Dodge had been exploring as well, like for the overpass. There's a couple other places like that. It just in terms of jumping off of what Kendall said. It's not necessarily just water. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Lorraine. All righty.
Landscapes.